My name is Matt. I'm the video reviewer for ARPGamer. Recently, Blair, one of our prestigious contributing writers, and I had the opportunity to sit down with Chris Taylor, founder and CEO of Gas Power Games, and talk to him about his upcoming ARPG RTS hybrid title, Wildman. For those just joining the party, Wildman is a new hybrid project that will attempt to combine two of the best gaming genres into one amazing package. Currently, in the middle of a Kickstarter project for the game, Chris carved out some time out of his busy schedule to sit down and let us pick his brain about Wildman. So grab that Dr. Pepper, sit back, and enjoy.
I know how it can be to be a celebrity like yourself and have to answer the same questions all the time. Now, I understood the game when you first presented it, so it was mind-boggling to me that a lot of people weren't getting what this game was. Now, I understand that there were details that needed to be ironed out and explained to the player, but for the most part, I don't know what is so difficult to understand about how an ARPG can integrate with an RTS. I think it's a beautiful idea, and you take the elements of the MOBA, the arena, and I don't think it's that difficult of a concept to understand. But give us a very brief description, just so everybody can understand it, of what Wildman is.
All right. Okay. So, I usually start off by talking about the fact that action RPG is a really solid, well thought out, fun game genre. You know, having a hero character, going out there, finding cool stuff. You know, you have combat, exploration, quests, some story elements that can really, warm up the whole experience and make it a lot of fun and carry you throughout this world. But at this point, 2013, we've done it so much that what we see happening in the business is that people add, prettier graphics, more monsters, more loot, and more. It'd be like adding more wheels on your car or more seats or a bigger engine. At some point, you have to ask yourself a different set of questions, like how can we take action RPG to a really new, exciting level? And the idea is that you have this hero, and what do heroes do in real life? What does Davy Crockett do, or what did the King Leonidas do as a hero? I'm sorry, a lot of people are like, who the hell's Davy Crockett? But, any hero from the told, stories that are told about heroes, they fight in wars, they fight with armies, they lead armies, Braveheart, he's out there, and he's not hiding in the back. He's out in front, and he's smashing more guys. Lord of the Rings, we had Overland Adventure with the Fellowship of the Ring, And then what do these characters get to do? They get to fight in a war. And are they tough? Oh, they're tough. They're tougher than anybody else, where everyone else has got, one-on-one and they're scrapping with one guy. We have our heroes smashing them one after the other, flicking them like they were nothing, right? It's epic. It's powerful. It's really, really moving. And it's you. You get to play this epic hero because you've been working on them, you've been building them up, you've been finding cool stuff and cool weapons, and now there's a war, and there's some guy, some overlord, some warlord holed up in his citadel, and he's got his armies, and you're like, well, yeah, okay, I can't take on a whole army, but guess what? I'm going to build my own army, and I'm coming to get you, and when I'm out there, and I see you on the battlefield, big warlord guy, I'm coming after you myself personally, and I'm going to smash your brains in. And then to make matters worse, I'm going to take the coolest stuff you've got, right? And this is Wildman. It's wild in the sense that you are sort of this uncontrollable force inside this world, and you're going to kick tons of ass. But you start off like early man did with nothing, a bone from last night's dinner, and this is your weapon. And man, you don't need much more than that to get the party started. You start cracking skulls right off the bat, and then you start building your empire. Then it becomes the story of man.
Okay, I I like that, Chris. I think that that's a really good idea. Now tell me, so tell everybody, is this your opus magnus? I mean, if you take a look at your entire career, so you've made a lot of games in your career, Chris. You can look at, if you guys want to take a look at Chris's Wikipedia page, you're going to see the games that he's made. He's really been an impact on the world of video gaming overall. Now, Chris, is this your opus magnus? You've taken everything you've done in your career. You've been the master of RTS. You've done an excellent set of ARPGs, and you guys dabbled in the MOBA. Quite honestly, very well. In fact, really kind of started the movement, if you really think about it. Is this kind of a culmination of everything? And would you consider Wildman taking all of your experience from the past and kind of throwing it into an opus magnus, your ultimate game?
You know, I really felt that that's what it was. I'm concerned, of course, that the Kickstarter's not going as well as I wanted it to go, but it's going. It's going. And the question then is, if we can get there, will there be the kinds of support that we'll need to make it that? Because in fairness, the Kickstarter is probably not the way to make your biggest title ever, to make the thing that is the crescendo of a 25-year career. That's a little problematic. That's a little bit like, you know, I don't know, try to pick your favorite big, you know, Christopher Nolan, you know, or somebody in Hollywood who's had this really great career. Not that I'm anything compared to them, but just to kind of frame it in another context. Imagine he was to go out and raise 1/10 the dollars to do his next film and call it his biggest film ever. It kind of doesn't fit. He did that when he was doing his early movies. He made his mark by making really fantastic movies with a very little amount of money. And that's what I did with Total Annihilation. We spent literally a little over $1 million on Total Annihilation. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think it's kind of weird, chronologically speaking. There's something kind of out of kilter here. And so I think what this is this is going to be, I think this is in the middle of my career. I don't think it's at the end. I don't think it's like, you know, if James Cameron, if Avatar was his what did you call it? Magnum opus.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, it kind of means that maybe the next thing that James Cameron does is going to go down a notch, and he's going to sort of settle down and maybe do some documentaries or do something a little more down. But you'll always remember Avatar. I think that for me, it's in the future. And when you start to think about, when you ask me the question, is it my magnum opus? Well, I don't see how it can quite fit that description. You know, even though I will give it everything I've got, because I'm not a big company. We're just a group of guys here in an office, independent, doing our thing, trying to do the best we can. And we are fighting for our independence. Anyway, long answer. I hope there was something in there that made sense and really just kind of helps folks to understand what it is that how the world works and why it works that way when it comes to PC gaming.
Thanks for your honesty, Chris. Really appreciate you answering that question. I'm sure it wasn't, or it isn't an easy question to try to process and get through, but thank you so much for that. So we're here to talk Wildman. I have just recently come to discover the game, thanks to Blair, actually. And so I spent a lot of time reading and watching and listening to pretty much everything I can find on the internet. And I've heard a lot of really cool stuff, specifically about the RTS side and how it's going to be streamlined and the emphasis on fun and adventure and just, you know, quickly jumping in. My question today is actually about the ARPG side. Now, are you looking to take a streamlined approach with that as well? Or, you know, are we going to see skill trees? Are we going to see passive and active skills? You know, basically, what can we expect from the ARPG side?
That's a great question. You know, because Dungeon Siege was 1.0, I designed that, and I designed it with my sensibilities. Skill-based class system, which means that you don't have to pick your skills at the beginning. You don't have to decide whether you're going to be a melee ranged magic. You get to just kind of feel your way through the world and decide what you want to do. You find items, you can equip items. the thing that we were trying to bring to that foundation, if you will, of action RPG was the notion that your character finds technology. So when I compare my character to your character, I'm not just comparing strength and dexterity and, you know, my health level or my items that I found, you know, the kind of the foundation, you know, the basic sort of pieces of the character. But I'm saying, oh, by the way, I have this tech. And you go, oh, ooh, I don't have that. Where did you get that? And I go, oh, I fought this guy and I got this piece of technology. And you're like, oh yeah, he's really tough. And I go, yeah, he took me I was a lot of work to fight him. But when I fought him, it was totally worth it because now I've got, you know, whatever it is, my soldiers now wear shoes,
Yeah,
something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you're finding cool stuff. You discover a chest, so a chest opens up, and you're like, "Ooh, I hid this stuff in here," and you can find gold coins, and you can find the things that you might expect. Oh, that's a better club than the club I had. But there's this little parchment of technology. Oh my God, I found technology hidden away. Someone had this idea and wrote it down. And now I'm going to go back and fight that war. And I'm going to be able to apply this thing I found. So the action RPG, I don't want to say, oh, it's like the same old action RPG. Because I don't believe it will be because of where it fits into the entire game design. You know, and I really want to draw some parallels to the way I think through a design process to Total Annihilation. When I was working on Total Annihilation, I told people things like, I want wreckage on the battlefield. And they were like, really, wreckage? Nobody does that. And I go, yeah, I do. And then I'd say things like, I want weapons that will fire across the world. And they're like, really? Nobody does that. And I go, yeah, but that's going to be awesome, right? Like stuff that breaks the mold, the model, the rules, breaks outside the box. I mean, how many times have you heard you got to think outside the box? Going outside the box is a very, very hard thing to do, or there wouldn't be a saying to describe it.
That's a valid point.
You know, everybody would be outside the box every day. They'd be talking about, oh, you got to get outside the geodesic sphere or something like that, right? And we'd be, oh, wow, that's really hard to do. I have to, you know, whatever, meditate for 3 hours. Wow. You really know how to throw me off, Jimmy. The thing is that when you push the boundaries and you break the rules and you try to expand a core gameplay experience, what you get is it's like every force has an equal and opposite force, you know, from physics. Yep. You get these forces that want to put you back inside the box. And what you have to then do is you have to get kind of wild. You have to be your own personal wild man, and you have to push and say, here's what I want to do differently, and get back to and try some ideas and push. So there will be quests. There will be people you can talk to. There will be people that talk to you in a bigger context. Like if in an action RPG, it's usually very personal. Like you'll meet somebody crying at the side of a country road. And you'll click on them. Why are you crying? And they'll say, my brother and I were going to visit, you know, this nearby town, and he disappeared, and there's these trolls over there, and I need basically, you're like, cut to the chase. Kill all the trolls, get my brother back.
Click continue, hack and slash.
Yeah, and then you go back in there. And it's very personal. So you rescue, you kill all the trolls, you get all their loot, you get the brother, you return it to the sister, and she's very happy, and she gives you a reward. And off they go, or maybe they join your party or something, right? Like this is action RPG, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually really good, but it's been done to death, and it's also very personal. But now think about this. You come across somebody on the road, and they're like, I can't go north because it's been blocked by an evil warlord, and I need an army to get through. And you're like, oh, wow, that's a big problem. You need a frickin' army. And now, as a single hero character, you're not just taking on the weight on your shoulders of whacking some trolls or whatever, orcs or whatever. You're now going to have to get your army together. Now, maybe you're not ready to take on this army. Maybe you don't have the cool stuff. You don't have the tech. So now maybe you're going to go on some quests to get the technology because you're going to need catapults. Maybe this is mid-game, and you're going to need catapults to take down the walls of this warlord. And so it then becomes a quest not just to fetch the milk or the mail. It becomes a quest to get something really important that fits into a much bigger story that's being told, and it fits a historical kind of evolution of men who needed to go out and get really powerful war machines to take someone down, and they knew better than to picking a fight until they had the right stuff. So it actually adds sort of an intellectual layer of, well, where you turn, this person who's telling you that they want to go north and they can't. I mean, that was really weak, but work with me.
Understood.
You say, well, you know what I really need to do? I need to take down this other opponent over here, this other stronghold, because they've got catapult technology, and I think I can beat them with what I got. So the progression of the game through the world is much more strategic than just going down a country road in an action RPG where you simply beat the shit out of everything along the way and take the stuff, right? Where you're not thinking. And I'm guilty of that in Dungeon Siege. I'm guilty of having a world which is just straight up, action for action's sake, a loose story to hang it all together, right? Which is fine, but I think what we're excited about here in this action RPG game is that we've given the hero character a real reason for going through this world. He's building his empire. He's doing so much more than just beating guys up for the sake of it.
No, that sounds absolutely incredible. I'm quite excited about the concept. Like I said, I think it's adding a much needed new approach to the ARPG, which is awesome. And actually, just to kind of expand on that a little bit, just had a quick question about as you get tech and as you progress, what kind of structure or even limiters have you put in place so that you can't just basically get every piece of tech in the game and rule the world easily? Like how does like specialization play into Wildman?
Well, that's a great question. The technology is sort of loosely distributed over the time of the single player world, and then there's of course some zigzaggy area to cover so that you can go here, you can go there, but you got to come back here. There's a pinch point. Maybe there's 2 or 3. You can kind of choose, get past, come back. There's a little bit of that. But the technology is, progresses throughout the entire world. Now, yes, if you keep going and going and going, you're going to have everything. It would be the equivalent of unlocking the entire tech tree in like an Age of Empires Online. That it's entirely possible that you have unlocked it all simply because you have found it all and it's available to you. And that's really rewarding and powerful. But that's where you evolve the game to, because now you've played the single player campaign once, maybe twice. And the idea is we want you to have to play through the game a few times because we want replayability. We want you to have lots of fun with the game. If it's 20 to 40 hours, heck, you can play it again. Mm-hmm. The thing is that you get into the co-op multiplayer game with this hero, and this hero feels like when you're in the local small town gym and you're training, and you knock everyone out in your small town, you're ready to go to the big time, and you want to start taking on some bigger, some more talented, more powerful opponents. That's when you get into the co-op multiplayer, and now you get to dial up these really powerful opponents, and you feel like you're more in the Warzone game. And then, of course, if the game continues to evolve past that, you go PvP and you go up against someone. Well, you don't want to step into the ring against someone and in that third phase unless you've got a great character.
Yeah.
And almost everyone who gets into that ring is going to have everything unlocked on the tech tree.
Well, can I go back to the questing for one sec, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the most important questing, or at least talking about the evolution of time, since you guys are going to essentially evolve from basically the Stone Age to medieval times, at least that's currently what's being discussed. Does the toilet evolve? Because I think that is one of mankind's greatest evolutions. Like, I just can't see myself reading a People magazine and sitting on a bush. So
that is profoundly, not only is it hilarious.
Sorry, I'm trying to hold that in, but
I love that. Blair, you have my sense of humor. I don't know if you knew that, but that's hilarious. Well, it's I want to have fun, the kind of fun that you just said. I think it'd be great to have that kind of fun. So when you're running around the world and you find dried meats, instead of a health potion, I've had enough health potions to last me a lifetime. I would love it if a porta potty was a technology that you could build for your on the battlefield, that your soldiers were much more relieved when they went into combat. Plus who doesn't need a little private place to go to when you need to take care of more than just your bowels?
Correct.
We'll leave that to people's imaginations to figure out what that is.
You the listener, think about that for a minute.
Something to ponder. Something to ponder.
So the point though is, right, that what you're hitting on there is that there's more to us than health potions and gold coins.
Correct. Yeah, it was a funny way to ask what else will be integrated into the progression, and is it just gonna? I know you, Chris. You can do better than the basics. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to sort of tell a bit of a story of man. I wanted to tell the story of how when somebody invented shoes, it was awesome, or the idea of soap, longevity, and then as we work our way up, we get more weapon centric, right? Because we're eating, we're sleeping in buildings that have we have roofs over our head, we've got our cozy blankets, whatever. But now it's time to focus on the acquisition of territory, and by destroying our opponents on the field of battle. And that's where everything kind of gets a lot more weapons of war oriented, but it is a video game about warfare. It's about an individual who builds his empire, and does it by taking on each opponent and finding better and better technology. So as far as what you're saying, is we want to sort of go follow along. I mean, we can invent the wheel. We can do things with that. We can go kind of more wide with the technology, but invariably people are going to want to stick a little closer to the progression of weapons, working up through from rocks that you throw to a sling, up to getting into spears, pikes, bows, crossbows, flaming arrows, exploding barrels.
Is there magic potentially?
Sappers, as they were.
Sap.
What's that?
What about the magic? Is there going to be any progression in the magic? You're going to try and keep it natural history? Or you're going to try and go with a little bit of more of the fantasy setting?
Well, I really like going natural history and then kind of pushing on natural history. So you start with like a shaman, and a shaman, he's doing his thing. Your heroes are healing slightly when they're around him, but he's very vulnerable on the battlefield. So you're like, they're kind of not, they're not super cheap, but they're not too expensive. So I got to decide how many I want. Oh, your shamans they don't fight, and then you can kind of improve them, and maybe you go through, like, I'm thinking like there's witches that are more devious and expensive, but they're harder to kill. But then you progress all the way up into a warlock, and then it's more like a wizard, or you get more into sort of a powerful character that has healing, and he can cause disease, and he can cause things to burst into flame around him. But I like the idea that he's not casting fireballs and doing electric bolt attacks. Like, there's something that's been done to death about the fireball. I love the idea that he could resurrect the dead. I like that fact that he could take things out of the environment like a tree and hurl them like with telekinesis, and do stuff that's sort of more that's fresh. That's really unique, that we haven't been seeing a lot of, because these engines, as powerful as they are, they're just really pretty. They're not usually very flexible in terms of the way we manipulate the environment. I like the idea that there's a character that raises his arms, and every tree, bush, piece of grass, every corpse bursts into flames. Like that, to me, is it's an image. It's like a Hollywood movie at that point, and all of the stuff starts floating that's burning on fire off the ground, and then he takes his arms back and throws them forward, and these are all flaming shit that just goes at the enemy and catches them all on fire, and has them screaming and knocks them into a chasm. Stuff that's really epic like that, but stuff you had not ever seen in previous certainly games that I've done. Of course, there's so many games out there now. You can't just wave your hand and generalize about what's been done, because it's really hard to see them all. But that's the general idea. The idea, we have physics. We can pick up a bunch of bodies that have been strewn around on the battlefield, and you could throw a body at someone. Just the idea that you hurl a body at them. That's kind of sick and fun, and I think fresh, especially when you have ragdoll physics. That's, you sort of start to see this battlefield taking place, and the idea is, when the battle's raging and all of this stuff is going on at once, it becomes very emergent in terms of the behavior, the things that you see, to where you have to at some point be amazed, shocked, and delighted at what's on the screen and go, oh yeah, I get it. This is nuts. This is insane. Because this is the way I like to create. I don't like a bunch of shit that's locked down tight. I want it to kind of break loose and be ridiculous, like Total Annihilation, like Supreme Commander. And that's, that needs to happen in the action RPG space.
That's sorry, I'm just processing everything you just said, which is awesome. I'm quite excited about this title. So it was actually my next question. I want to talk a little bit about, you have mentioned several times that as you go through the land, you'll be conquering other territories and taking over people's land and their technology. Have you guys thought about, or has it been talked about, the idea of actually having alliances in the single player, where you would go to an enemy, and he's massive and huge, and there's no way you're going to take him, so you run over to this other guy and say, hey, let's buddy up and take this guy out. Has that come up at all?
Well, what's funny, that came up in the comments, and I read that, and I went, that is a great idea. I cannot believe I did not think of that. So imagine you have these different, for lack of a better words, warlords. Let's just call them warlords. I've been casting about for names, but there's a warlord. He's blocking your path forward through the world, because in a single player game, there's a certain amount of contriving the flow of the world and the progression of the world. This is just called game design. Mm-hmm. Now imagine that instead of picking a fight with one, you go pick a fight with the other, and he sends his army out, and you run towards the other guy, and he sees this army coming, and he's like, what the hell? And he sends his army out. That's sort of kind of a fun way to make that happen. Mm-hmm. But the idea that you could literally go and do a dialogue tree, and you could say to them, do you want to fight against this other warlord? And he says no, but if you can do some action RPG stuff now. And he can say, my daughter is missing in the mountains, or there's something that's really important to me that I lost, or pay me 10 grand, right? We have a lot of different mechanisms, storytelling mechanisms. Some of them are really kind of cliche, and some of them are less cliche, but but this is our challenge, right? Try to stay away from the cliche and deliver a fresh experience. But the truth is, pull that off in this context, it becomes fresh again, because now when you complete the quest, you just got yourself an ally to fight an even more epic war with. And that just sounds like crazy fun, especially if you turn around and backstab him and take him out at the end when he's weak.
Exactly. Wait for the war to be over and then just go kill him.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know that I don't even know that I have the stomach to do that on a computer, to backstab. But you know what? So there's somebody out there who will, and will love it and have the time of their life, and they'll talk about it for the next 20 years. That's why we want to create these epic moments in gaming. We don't just want little things to move around on the screen, colored pixels, right? Gaming is so much more than pixels on the screen. It can be moments, emotional moments that you carry with you, moments you talk about, moments you laugh about, things that you wish you could relive. That's what PC gaming, and frankly, the kind of games that I want to create should do.
Actually, I had one other question I wanted to throw at you in relation to multiplayer and co-op. Now, my understanding is that kind of the initial release, it's going to be strictly single player. But in a few of the videos that I've watched, you've talked a little bit about the idea of co-op or multiplayer. Can you kind of just elaborate a little bit? What do you envision? What would you like to see? How would having this hybrid genre work in a co-op or multiplayer setting?
Well, the idea is that on Dungeon Siege 1, we did multiplayer, but we did it in a map called the Utrian Peninsula. If anybody out there remembers that, And we didn't try to do it in the single player campaign because what it does is it compromises what you do when you design your single player experience, because you're not designing a single player experience. You're designing a multiplayer experience that 90% of the people are going to play single player. So you're trying to make a truck and a car at the same time. And you end up with a El Camino. And we know how that turned out.
Yeah, true.
And all those people out there who drive El Caminos, I'm very sorry what I just said.
You're going to start getting like hate mail from people with El Caminos.
No, because now they're cool because there's only like 6 left. So, this all works out. But you can't design a car and a truck, and especially you can't design a semi-truck and a econo car, right, at the same time. And that's a terrible analogy, because some games just work. Like, it's the perfect blend of everything all at one time. Like, it just works. Like, I'll go back to Minecraft. Minecraft just works. Single player, multiplayer, but there's no story. There's no there's no narrative. There's no story. You lost your father, and your mother raised you, and blah 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 blah. This is very emotional, very gripping. And oh yeah, you can play it with your friends, so you both lost your father. Like, it doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
there's some places where you just can't do it. And we did it on Dungeon Siege 2, and I think it weakened the narrative. So I don't want to make that mistake again. So for Wildman, we want the single-player campaign to be about a single-player experience. Really sweep you up and take you on that journey. The multiplayer comes in with the war zones that you play alongside your friend or friends, multiple, and you fight in the war zone. But what's kind of cool about this is you can do a little bit more. You can play on a map and don't immediately go to war against the opponents. You might be able to have a little bit of exploration. There could be some caves. There could be some dungeons that are sort of back behind you or in other places that you and your friends get to explore in. Then we have the mod tools. So the mod tools allow people to go and create their own experiences, their own dungeons, and do a multiplayer game. Design for a multiplayer game. Like, in other words, have that as a goal right from the beginning. Not trying to go off and create another single player, but something where they can create, like a dungeon master in D&D, like 500 years ago when I was in high school and I did that. I mean, the dungeon master created this world, and then your friends came together and played in their world, and that's a really powerful thing. And I think that's where you can have a multiplayer experience. But from a pure production capability bandwidth, it's way easier for us to release the tools, especially through the Project Mercury technology. It's way easier for us to release the tools and have people build those experiences on their own, because just the sheer scale and the number and everything else would make it impossible for us to get all this done in the time that we'd have the finances and the budget to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I've seen a few other companies take this approach where they basically just give away the mod tools. And I mean, there's been like a very positive response to that. So I like that approach. It makes sense. It gives a lot of flexibility. And like you said, from a design perspective, it kind of frees you guys up a little bit and doesn't put so much pressure on you while designing, which allows you to design a much better single player experience in the process.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, like, when you're the dungeon master in a D&D, when you're the creator of the world and you get to put your friends in it, that's a very, very rewarding. I mean, that's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. That's a very rewarding experience. That's fun. There's friends who make games and there's friends who play games, and there's probably 1/10 or 1/100th the number of people that make to those that play. There's people listening right now who know that they're game makers. They're the people who create, and they would get tools on a web context that they could do this stuff, and they could have it on their MacBook. They could have it on their PC. They go camping up in the woods, and all they got to do is have, maybe they've got a wireless connection, maybe they don't, because this is probably going to need an internet connection. But as long as they can get on the internet, they can take that computer and they can get access and keep working and building. And then if they want to download the compiled tools on Windows, we'll release those as well. They can work offline with a more complex, probably more brittle set of tools. So this is a whole area that I'm super excited about, because I really want people to get into a creative headspace on this game.
I like it because it's kind of your way of giving back to the community. In a lot of ways, if you think about it, you're taking yourself as a game designer and saying, hey, look, here are some tools to go try and do what we're doing, and to really push the boundaries of what we're doing. And And I think a lot of people can appreciate that. I think Project Mercury is absolutely beautiful. And just for all the listeners, give us a brief overview, Chris, just a very brief overview of what Project Mercury is.
I know, asking me to do something briefly, right?
I know. Well, I'm just, this is your time. I'll be here all day.
God bless those people who could sit through these hour-long interviews. Project Mercury is something I started working on, let's say, a few years ago. I started poking around, buying books, HTML, HTML5, JavaScript, PHP, Apache, all these things that I needed to kind of understand in order to put together a website and use the canvas, use JavaScript. And I created this thing, which I called then the infinite desktop. So this infinite plane that goes in every direction. You can stick an app on this desktop, a little window, and there it lives. You can shut it off. You turn it back on, and it's there. Pulls it down off the server. Everything's persisted. Everything is persisted. You never have to use save or load. You just log in, and presto, it's there. So then I had this idea, well, I'm going to connect them with, I'm going to create a relationship between apps, and apps are going to be able to talk to each other. And then I kept growing that out, and I said, well, you know what? You could actually write an app that renders from a data set. The other app can take that rendered data and pull it into its own self. So what it does is it says to this other app, could you render the data into this surface where I want it? And that surface happens to be the render surface of app A, and then it's shown. And suddenly now you've got services all spread out. And then I realized, oh my God, I had this moment, this eureka moment where I was like, I think this is a new paradigm in the architecture of web apps and technology. This is amazing. What this is going to allow people to do is work in teams with people all over the world. There's going to be a guy in Peru and someone in Scotland and a guy in South Korea, and they are going to be able to collaborate. Now, instead of having a code base where one guy checks in his code and buggers up everybody else's parts, just his piece will break. So now let's imagine you have a paint program and you have a color picker. And it's a very basic, awful, ugly color picker, kind of like the one we have. And it's very rudimentary, but there's this guy who makes this really, really advanced, amazing color picker. And all you do is you just delete the one that you have on your screen, and you spawn the new super deluxe color picker in, and you reconnect the line, the synergy connection. And bingo, you just upgraded the color picker. Now imagine if you had an art program and you had to bake the color pick technology in, but the guy who wrote it had a bug in there, and it would crash your whole art program. Well, using this model, you can't crash another app because the app doesn't take control away, execution control. It's all done through key value pairs. There's no way that bad data can flow across this pipe. So I realized, oh, this is fabulous. This means that people with disparate skill levels, a very, very junior person can work with a very senior person. I have worked in software since I was 14 years old, professionally since I was 21. So I've been doing this professionally, let's just say, 25 years. I have seen it all. The days of monolithic code bases are either dead or they're dying. And anyone who keeps operating under that architectural paradigm is going to go up this curve of impossibility. If you ever wondered why there's a bug in Excel or Word that cannot be fixed, or why the features that get added are just crawling along now, it's because of a monolithic code base. And so when I discovered this on Project Mercury, I realized I had more than just a web platform. I had a new paradigm for development, and it was a game changer, a total game changer. And I was going to basically begin this journey with the mod tools for Wildman.
I absolutely love it. I am psyched about Project Mercury and all of the possibilities it can bring. The first thing I said to myself is, it's always open. It's not a thing you were talking about closing it, having somebody come in a little bit later and open it and then try and figure out what the first person is. It's always open. From anywhere I go, I can get inside my browser. I can get inside of this tool set, and everything that I'm using, it's all there. And then my friend can jump in, and it's all there. I don't have to close it. I don't have to package it. I don't have to share it in the traditional way. It's just there. And that, to me, really just screamed open. And what a beautiful way to work. I can think of a million uses. So pretty excited about that, actually.
Project Mercury is all of these things come together, and I'm just like crawling out of my skin with excitement as to how this is going to change the future of not only gaming and mod making, but frankly of computing in general, right across the board.
Can I jump back over to Wildman for 1 sec?
Please.
We don't keep you too much longer, but I know that there's a few questions out on the Kickstarter that the guys are really itching to know. So let me throw them at you, and let's get your take on them. First of all, what about a multi-class approach? Are you going to just do Wildman as a single class, and then they can kind of branch out from there? Or what are your plans there?
Well, it's what I call a skill-based class system, which is probably a very confusing name, which it means that your Wildman becomes whatever you spend time on. So if you swing a weapon, a melee weapon, you become basically a melee fighter. And that's kind of the way real life works. If I work on this thing over here, on my auto mechanics, then my brain surgery starts to fail, or the ability to, build a computer or toothpicks, like I get better in the things that I spend my time working on. And that's the paradigm. That's the way, I don't know if it's a paradigm. It's just it's the mechanism by which I like to design, because it matches real life. And it means you can't be a jack of all trades. It means if you're going to be a little bit of everything, it means you're probably not good at anything. Master of none. So that's the style. That's the way I like it. Now, if I get enough feedback, especially from the backing community, if they say to me, Chris, we'd rather just have 3 classes and go vertical on the classes, well, this is the first project in my career where people get an opportunity to participate and to bend reality and change the future path of a game before it happens. I don't know, 15 years ago, I used to tell people, if I was sitting in the office at GPG and someone who never played video games before in their life walks into the room and they say something that's intelligent and that is meaningful, that resonates to what I'm looking at, what I'm doing, I'm going to listen to them. Good ideas come from everywhere.
Yeah.
And I really believe in that. I stand by that. I took ideas from people and I said, you have no idea what you've just done. You have just changed the course of this game because you said something that's really intelligent, or even if it wasn't, it was completely random. Even if they were just spewing, it doesn't matter. They have a great idea in that moment. And that's my job. My job is to find great ideas and then intelligently integrate them with the overall design vision.
Now, going into just a little bit about you as we close this up, tell me, I want to ask like 3 or 4 questions. They only require a 1 or 2 word answer. What is your personal favorite game of all time?
God, that's really hard to do.
No, it's hard for me. I couldn't tell you. I'm glad it's you, and instead of you asking me.
Well, I'm gonna go with Battlefield 1942.
Okay.
But I'm gonna say that if I play Minecraft for 1 more minute, I'm gonna have to switch to Minecraft because I put so many hours on Minecraft. But I played Battlefield 1942 every single night for a year, and my wife almost divorced me. So I think that wins.
All right. Which of the 3 genres do you like best? Do you like ARPG, RTS, or MOBA? Since you're including all 3 into Wildman in one form or another, which is your personal favorite?
Oh.
Hey,
I'm gonna have to say RTS.
Okay.
But because MOBA is so close to RTS, and I love action RPG, but I'll be honest with you, I'm bored with the action RPG games that are out there. It's like I'm Mr. Creosote from Monty Python. I can't eat another thing. I'm stuffed.
No, that makes sense. There does seem to be a lot of the same elements, a lot of the same killing, just going straight into games. So I like this fresh take of not kill, grab, loot, upgrade, kill, grab, loot, upgrade, and then talk to somebody, and then take some item. I really like the fresh take that you're doing for the game, and so I think going this direction with mixing with the RTS is the right direction to go. Will there be a mini game in Wildman? Will we get in a tavern someday and gamble? Will there be a little claw in the corner, a little medieval claw that we can play with?
Probably not.
Okay.
Because we're very practical about what we're looking at here. If this number keeps going and we can get to 1.1, we're going to have to spend every dollar like it was our last.
Well, I'm sure you're doing it. I'm sure that this is very intense, but we really wish you all the best. ARPGamer is all about ARPGs, and you have built this incredible idea, and we're extremely excited about it. This, for me personally, was the most exciting ARPG I've heard about in years. It just takes so many elements from different fields and merges them, and you've just created something that I can't believe more people haven't jumped on the idea of how much of a masterpiece this is. And we really do wish you all the best. What would you like to say to the fans in closing?
Well, I will say this to the folks certainly who've come to Kickstarter and participated in the discussions, whether they've pledged or not, but that have become a part of this. And I want to thank everyone for spreading the word and being a part of this. This has changed. It's changed me. Like, I don't want to get weird on you here, but I'm not the same guy that I was 2 weeks ago. I'm a different person from this experience.
Well, Chris, we wish you all the best. Thanks so much for joining us today on this interview. It's great to have you with us and to be able to pick your brain about Wildman. We're looking forward to it, and we'll be following closely as the Kickstarter progresses. And for all our readers and listeners today, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this interview as well. It's gamers like you that keep us going. And remember, for all your latest news, reviews, and interviews on all things ARPG, be sure to check us out at www.arpgamer.com. I'm Matt, and thanks for listening.